Alright, so Spellmonger, Book 2, Warmage. Before I start this, I want to say, I'm sorry this is taking so long. Work is really getting in the way of things. I'm trying, but there's only so many hours in the day. Second off, upon starting this thing, I started to look more online for reviews about this subject, about this book series, and I came across one criticism that I kind of want to respond to about this. I heard some people say that if you're a woman, you might not like the series, to which I had to say, yeah, my mom actually really likes this series, so I don't think there's an issue with women not liking this series. Keep in mind, though, my mom has a degree in biology, so the implication that men and women are different isn't offensive to her. Okay, anyway, on to the second book. This second book keeps up the same sort of going back and forth between things that we saw in the previous book. In this case, it's going between the actual war that's going on and the court politics that were necessary to get that war, to set the war in motion. For what it's worth, the court drama in here is all very well done and it's compelling. There's always questions, and it's almost a battle, and a lot of the time, it's almost a battle in and of itself. There's this one moment I remember where the main character is playing a game of, I think they call it rushes, which I think is supposed to be something sort of similar to chess. I can't say for certain, though. And the entire game ends up being kind of a metaphor for the conversation, and in that how the character is trying to get across his point. What happens is the military commander spends way too much time killing his pieces, taking his pieces, and doesn't realize that he actually just lost the game because of whatever rules there were to the game. I'm sure the author has a detailed understanding of how this game works, but it wasn't clear enough to me. I grasped the basics, though, and I'm getting kind of off topic. But this back and forth between the court drama and the actual fighting really keeps up the action in the series, so there's always something going on. And you see why the quick response was necessary in this situation. The goblins in this series, the goblins who, I mean, if you've read the first book, they end up being the main antagonists, are not terribly coordinated when it comes to military affairs, and humans have the advantage early on in that regard. And this is the kind of discussion that I like. As much as I don't care for action scenes, I do like discussion of tactics and strategies and the overall understanding of the fight. I do enjoy that kind of thing. And in that regard, this series continues with this clever use of magic in very simple ways. The main people, the goblins, like I already said, they're naturally nocturnal, right? So in one battle sequence, the big, show-shopping trick was just to create a really, really, really bright light in the middle of the night. This screwed with the enemy forces so much, and it was such a simple spell for the main character to cast that it was really hard to disrupt, that they ended up winning that battle. But here's where I want to get one of my first real criticisms of the series. I have a hard time remembering a lot of the tertiary characters' names. I'm clear on, the main cast, Min, and anyone who he interacts with frequently. So, his apprentices, or Pentandra, or his wife, or his father, or, even the ducal family. Those people I'm clear on, but a lot of, the mages that pop up every now and then, they're not introduced in a memorable way, so I kind of get fuzzy on what their names are. This ends up being somewhat of an issue because I remember personality traits. I remember there was that mage there who did that thing with this character, but I can't remember their name. When a character is introduced, there's usually something you usually want to introduce them in such a way that it creates an impression, and you tell them their name. I mentioned in the first book how the main character's name was introduced, and that was a good impression, and that was also a good impression. For a few of these tertiary characters, it's just sort of, oh yeah, and that's it doesn't really help. That's an overall minor criticism. I have a difficulty remembering some of the characters' names because I don't feel like they were introduced well. For what it's worth, I think this is a problem that gets fixed over time. And like I said, I do remember some of the I do remember characteristics. Like I remember Hesia was I think she was described as a good person, but not somebody who you really want to spend a weekend with, if that makes sense.
I just didn't have the grades. Or the physical endurance. Plus, I threw up a lot, and nobody liked spending a week with me.
A week would be a little much.
And then also in this book, we get a more comprehensive understanding of the, quote, bans on magic. Basically, magic is highly regulated in this, well, they call it a kingdom, but there's no king. So, realistically, it's the 5 duchies. This creates some problems because, like, magic has been like, so institutionally oppressed for so long. It's another one of those the rules just don't make sense anymore sorts of thing. But keeping in mind this series realistic without being pessimistic, this does feel like a realistic set of rules that would come across from an overly sensitive government about magic due to the history that read the book if you want to know it. I'm not here to explain it. I'm here to tell you that you should read this book. There are also elements of spycraft in this book, so if you like that sort of story in your fantasy setting, that is in here as well, with the addition of the character Isali, who is a shadow mage and a bitch, but I'm getting ahead of myself on that one. And this all ends in the appropriate amount of optimism, while also recognizing that shit's about to get much worse. And the ending of this book is it's a very good climax that builds up a lot of things and really shows that, like, what people can do what the mages can do when they're let free from the aforementioned bans, and the importance of specialization for certain things. Our main character is, in his own words, a generalist, but he has great respect for somebody who is just like, this is the absolute best person at this one particular kind of magic, and that's an important thing to show. You're seeing the power that the mages have, not just in their magical ability, but in their ways of thinking, their different specializations. And I don't know, I liked the climax for that reason. So again, this is a book that I really recommend. I liked it even more than the first one. Here's hoping I can get, a review of the third one quicker than this, because my God, am I taking forever on this shit.
Slow down! I want to get there, but I want to get there alive!